Yo, parish orphans and retrogrades. Today's Saturday edition of Rules for Retrogrades. I'll be discussing more Pope Francis news. There's never a lack of it. What there's a lack of here in my house, in my studio, with Rules for Retrogrades, is an enthusiasm for just doing what might constitute blackpilling people continuously about Francis. This many years into his pontificate, it just gets tiresome, doesn't it?
Oh, so tiring. Exhausting. Boring.
Dog tiring. I mean, it's rarely boring because Pope Francis is always doing big power moves, relatively important bad stuff against the church. You might call it the traditional church, but it's just the church. And he's very ambitious, and he was placed there by the Sankt Gallen Mafia to do ambitious stuff. And today it's reported, I'm looking at Michael Haynes' Twitter account, that Franca Johnsol writes, a special LMNOPQ pilgrimage led by Tenda di Giornata will be part of Vatican 2025 Jubilee in next fall, in September. Approved by Pope Francis himself, and with support of Cardinal Zuppi and Jesuit head Father Sosa, the event will be at the Jesuit Church of the Gesù Bambino. So this means that Francis, in a word, has approved a special LMNOPQ Jubilee pilgrimage, and it vindicates the idea that Francis's pontificate, with a few different themes, one of which is tearing down the semi-traditionalism built up by Benedict XVI, his predecessor. Another one is tearing down traditionalists and any security they thought they might have in the post-conciliar church, following upon Benedict's pontificate. And another of which has been the Sankt Gallen agenda of female deacons, getting married priests, getting communion for divorce until they were married, communion eventually with the Lutherans, intercommunion. But this one is confirmed, LMNOPQ. Francis likes to pretend it's not part of the agenda, the LMNOPQ agenda, because he'll say things like, I'm not pro LMNOPQ, but he is. He is. And you know by his close correspondence with Father James Martin S.J.
Naughty pet.
The naughty pet, Martin himself, that so ridiculous, that he supports him. And Father Martin played a special role in the Synod on Synodality in October. He's played a special role among American priests and bishops in the Francis, particularly the second half of the Francis pontificate. You know it's not true, but this is really big. I'm going to read from the Il Messaggero article, only in Italian. I couldn't find any English language articles on this, that the Pope approves an LMNOPQ pilgrimage, and he is a rainbow Pope in the sense that he supports LMNOPQ+. That's today's show. I'll translate that Il Messaggero article for you and give you some brief commentary. First, I want to remind you that between Thanksgiving and Christmas, as we find ourselves, you can always, as you're forming your New Year's resolutions, if you do that, you should always be aiming to restore the patriarchal right order of your household. That's a huge, many say the most prominent pillar of this channel at this point. And it's the most important thing, even more important than going to Latin Mass versus the Novus Ordo, or living in a diocese under a good bishop. There are like 3 of them, or anything else. The most important thing in the life of a Christian, specifically a Catholic, ought to be the home. The original self society needs to be well-ordered, to be well-ordered, it needs to be patriarchal. To be patriarchal, it needs to be steeped in both manly and womanly virtue on the two counterparts. We have been showing men and women how to do that. Now, we've been showing you through 3 books associated with the channel. The Case for Patriarchy, Ask Your Husband, and Leave and Cleave are our most recent that we co-wrote together. That's the most specific one. These books are all on a 10% sale. They're on 20% Cyber Week sale after Thanksgiving. We kept them at 10% discount. Everything else on timothyjgordon.com, particularly associated with patriarchy, is on sale. We're beginning a new Leave and Cleave class, One Flesh Marital Workshop, in January. That's on 10% sale, as are all of the many 20 classes that you can buy, or recorded or live versions. And here's the most important one. Our 2-on-2 marriage coaching is 10% on sale between now and, for the coming week or weeks, because we want as many people enrolled in this as we can get. We already have like 6 or 7 couples enrolled in the coaching, and it's been an amazing experience. I feel the need to impart right now to you all that it's not just for really troubled couples. We have a lot of A couples wanting to get to A+ that are getting out ahead of problems. A lot of young married couples. And just all the feedback's been amazing. We do the weekly coaching program for 3 months. It's $3,500. If you spring for it today, it'll be $3,150 because we're taking off 10% on this cyber sale. Go to timothyjgordon.com and sign up today. It's been quite an honor to lead this front against really Satan. Think about it. The attack on the family is Satan's final attack on the world. We're late in the 11th hour of the life of the world, and we're just fighting the good fight. Taking all the slings and arrows, all the demonic spiritual combat that goes with it. I've told a lot of people, feel like the last 6 months or so have been fraught with spiritual combat, and I'm like one of the last guys to see spiritual combat in what might otherwise be a natural problematic, the constellation of a natural problematic. I'm usually one of the last ones, but doing all this work on behalf of patriarchy and restoring households to right order as much as we can, I feel like it's brought on some preternatural anxiety and attack. So pray for me, please, parish orphans and retrogrades, and I'll pray for you. Okay, it's nearly 2025, and that year, aside from being Francis's 12th, 13th in the chair of Peter, is a jubilee year. Dating back to Jewish tradition, jubilee years are like every 50th, and all the debt is relieved in society. I don't know which credit card companies would be giving loans the year or two before Jubilee year. I'm not sure how that works, but part of this Jubilee year, it's recently been announced, will be an LMNOPQ Homo sapien special retreat. Here's the Il Messaggero article that dropped yesterday. I'm translating as I go. Jubilee, an event for joy, dedicated to the LG community. The move of Pope Francis. This is the title. Francis and the Cardinal Zuppi vindicate the resistances of the Catholic traditionalists, overcome the resistances of the Catholic traditionalists by making this, whatever you want to call it, peregrination, pilgrimage, specifically for rainbow people. So don't tell me, Pope-splainers, if there are any of you guys left out there, you've been quiet lately because Francis has been on the move. Don't tell me that Francis is not a man of the left, that he's not a man of the rainbow flag, that he's not, the figurehead of the Lavender Mafia, or don't tell me that Francis synodalism is different from German synodal way synodalism. It's all nonsense. The lavender agenda is central to what he's doing. I mean, there are other projects he's got going on, but they're all strongly left subversive. Here's how the article reads. In the Church of Pope Francis, open to all, it is indicated that all are included and no one is any more excluded. The Jubilee of 2025
Are you reading this from Italian?
Yeah. It's nella Chiesa del Papa Francesco aperta todos a indicare che tutti sono inclusi e nessuno è più escluso. Il Jubileo del 2025 splanchera means to lighten the doors to the first pilgrimage dedicated expressly to rainbow and to persons LGBT. Il Jubileo del 2025 splancherà le porte al primo pellegrinazio dedicato espressamente ai gay e alle persone LGBT+. One absolute novelty, unthinkable until some recent years, fruit of an attention, no kidding, fruit of an intention pastoral, a pastoral attention that one extends to the lonely, ambient people at the margins. In the official calendar of the year, the Holy Year, from September 6th until I don't see when, has been inserted a moment of special spirituality, and the historical church of Bambina Gesù will do a promotion for LGBT, a pilgrimage, and their parents, their operators, and all colors of the rainbow in the what is that? Yeah. So, okay. So I'm just getting the sense of it here. So it's mentioning over and over and over again the theme of discrimination. What does this sound like? This sounds like any woke, subversive left talking point, because it is. LGBT è verso ogni persona colpita da discriminazione. So LGBT is, according to this subversive message by Francis in the Francis Church, is sticking up on the behalf of each person who's a victim of discrimination and blames each person guilty of discrimination. So this finding discrimination around every corner, under every rock, is central to wokeness. It's central to Francis's church, blaming traditionalists and the traditional historical church for towing the line, for having real standards, for saying that there is only one way to paradise, and that way is through Christ, without whom no one can go to heaven. This condemns all other world religions, including Judaism. Whereas Benedict condemned relativism as the greatest, most pernicious phantom menace in the world today, Francis basically hails relativism. You know, in his Jesuitical way, he says basically it's very, very difficult for people to actually mortal sin. We know it's not so difficult. The standard of review applied to moral theology in action theory is not difficult. It's not difficult for people to mortal sin. Francis has raised the bar. You know, if you get a divorce from your wife because you're in middle age and having a midlife crisis, and you try to swap her out for the younger model, that's just adultery. Jesus says it in 2 of the Gospels. This is adultery. You divorce your wife, you get a younger wife. prettier, smaller, thinner, new wife, she's not your wife. You're just an adulterer. Our Lord says it directly. Most divorce, aside from people getting bored and being about ennui, is really just about sex. And we know from the first half, the conclusion of the first half of the Francis pontificate, really in 2016 with Amoris Laetitia, when that document came out, it was the culmination of 2 synods on the family. And it wasn't really on the family. What those 2 synods were about was the breaking of the family and the christening of the breaking of the family by allowing people to divorce and remarry, which has always been a no-no in the church. So Benedict stuck up to some extent for the moral norms of the church and the family. Francis broke it. Benedict stuck up in some weak way for the traditional liturgy. Francis broke it. Benedict said moral relativism is the greatest evil, and Francis says that traditionalism, and what word does he always use? Like stodginess, or what does he always say? Severity? What's the word Francis always uses?
Rigidity?
Rigidity, thank you. Rigidity seems to be the greatest evil in Francis' church. So it's a total swap. And this applies robustly to the LGBT lavender mafia, which everyone knows, the power in the cardinalate and the episcopate is in Northern Europe, and these guys are almost to the man. After hours. Very, very, very lavender mafia. There's a video of Benedict, you can still go find it, arriving in his home, Germany, and basically there's a greeting line of German prelates who each refuse to shake his hand.
It's actually really sad to watch. It's like your heart breaks for the guy.
This is the Holy Father. It's a low bar, but probably our holiest Holy Father since the Council, since Pius XII. I don't know who else would really be in the running. People like JP2. There are tons of problems with JP2 and his pontificate. So I guess Benedict is the holiest Holy Father we've had since the Council, and he can't get a handshake from. And many of them are Cardinal Casper's there. Many of the other Belgians and Germans and Swiss and Northern French cardinals mentioned by the demons of what's her name? Why am I forgetting everything today? The Energamon who passed away. Emily Rose is based on her.
Are you talking about oh gosh,
Anneliese
Michel?
Anneliese Michel. Yeah, remember one of the demons there talked about the council, the Belgians, they mentioned the Belgians specifically, the Northern Europeans, the fact that they hate communion on the mouth, they like communion in the hand. Some of the norms following upon Vatican II, the spirit of the council. And the demon said, we like this very much, and we hate very much the traditionalism. Well, those nationalities of bishops are the powerhouse and have been since Karl Rahner's day, since the day of the Parity of Vatican II. The Rhine flows into the Tiber, as they say. The Rhine flows into the Tiber, and it's been the powerhouse in the church, and it was those guys, together with some powerful South American prelates, Carlo Martini, who's now dead, and Achille Silvestrini, the guys that Giulia Maloney did a yeoman's labor bringing to our attention, the Lavender Mafia, the St. Gallen Mafia, all of those guys, Walter Casper, they are all not just St. Gallen Mafia, they're Lavender Mafia. So when you see Francis making power moves in order to, bring in LMNOPQ to the church more, remember whose work he's doing. I mean, not just the devil, but the Lavender Mafia. And the Church of Pope Francis, open to all. It is indicated that all are included and no one is any more excluded in this Jubilee year. Well, that's really not true, is it? Traditionalists are excluded. Cardinal Burke is excluded. Remember, Francis was making jokes about him when he was on what could have been his deathbed. He was making jokes about him dying.
Veganos excluded.
Veganos excluded.
Really, isn't that something that, like, critiquing the Pope is a worse sin, according to the Pope, than people in active, sinful, like...
Sod. Yeah.
Yeah.
Peter Damian said it's worse than murder. Francis says, no, the only thing that's worse than murder is being rigid or being traditional or criticizing me. Cardinal Pell is excluded. Remember, his nose was found broken. The nose of his corpse was found broken in the agent's hands of Francis. There's going to be a... Look... were you going to say something, Steph?
I was just saying, like, everyone who's saying that he's merciful and understanding and reaching out to this subset.
Is anyone saying that?
No, well, people have said that. They're like, well, he's trying to bring people into the church because he's such a loving father. It's like, well, what about all the people that he's excluded out of the church for critiquing him? Somebody who... There would be an argument, I guess. It's a stupid argument, but there would be an argument if he was just... wanting everybody in the church and making all these, reaching out to everybody, and also not at the same time kicking people out of the church that critique him. He's just petty.
Yeah, think of Bishop Strickland. Goodly Bishop Strickland. If you're watching Bishop Strickland, we love you. Goodly Bishop Strickland, demoted. Cardinal Mueller, demoted. Cardinal Burke, demoted. Cardinal Brandmuller, one of the few good Germans, mistreated. 2 of the 4 dubia cardinals died awaiting a response that never came from Francis. Remember, Cardinal Meisner, Cardinal Caffarra, the 2 now deceased goodly cardinals who asked Pope Francis, Holy Father, how can you do this? How can it be possible that you make this move toward what eventually became Amoris Laetitia? They could see where it was going from the synod, and they're not included. So this Il Messaggero article line that all are included in the pontificate of Francis is just nonsense. It's nonsense. All of the subversive leftist lobby groups are included. All of the worst sinners, abortionists. Remember Emma Bonino?
Yeah.
She's performed more abortions in Italy than anyone. Great friend of Francis. Jeffrey Sachs was invited in and out of the White House, in and out of the Vatican. No, Freudian slip. All throughout the summer of 2014 and 2015. Think of our CDF, for heaven's sakes. Tucho Fernandez, the pervert who wrote a book on how to French kiss for young teens. All the perverts and the weirdos and the bad guys are included in the what might be considered the palliative orbit of Pope Francis. And none of the good guys, none of the ones that believe in Jesus's words against divorce and remarriage, or Jesus's words against, as we did a show earlier this week, the LMNOPQ plus agenda. Remember what he called Herod? He had some choice words for King Herod. None of those guys are included. Cardinal Burke, Cardinal Sarah, I forgot about him, demoted also. All of the holiest cardinals have been demoted. There's going to be a kind of reckoning whenever Francis dies. And I hope you join me in praying for him, that he converts his heart and his mind sometime between now and whenever he dies, because he is getting old fast. He's approaching 90. And I want him to go to heaven, and I want him to reform the church in a true way, not the way promised by Theodore McCarrick at Villanova University in 2013, 6 months after Francis became Pope, when he bragged he helped to set up the Francis pontificate. Theodore McCarrick, molester McCarrick. And he said, me and this mysterious Italian gentleman, we got the guy for the St. Gallen Mafia, is what he was saying in so many words. And we set this up. This guy is a South American who, give him 5 years and he'll remake the whole church. Well, Francis has tried to do that, been enraged by the American lay commentariat, I think including yours truly here, because I've been at this a while, been up pretty early since the days of TNT, making videos on all these same bad guys that are now kind of emplaced and empowered. But there's going to be a reckoning after he dies if he doesn't make this conversion, which I pray for. I try to pray for it every day. It'll be, hey, what's the story with Cardinal Pell? There is a story back there with Cardinal Pell. There will be a story on what happened with, I don't know, Archbishop Vigano. He's been on the run. He says, in fear for his life. I don't think he was being maudlin. There's going to be a story with what happened with Benedict and the end of that pontificate. But especially Cardinal Pell, keep your eyes on the headlines there'll be minor headlines, page 3 headlines on what happened with Cardinal Pell and Pope Francis. And look for guys like Cardinal Burke, yes, but Cardinal Mueller, former CDF demoted by Francis, to come out in the wash after Francis dies. We're stalemated. And that's why I don't do like 2 or 3 Francis shows a week anymore. There's too much important work to be done that can actually be accomplished in the realm of patriarchy, restoring order to the family, helping to destroy the original sin and its effects, that is feminism, which just makes families ungodly, brings families away from church, turns kids gender dysphoric, either in the first or the second sense, feminist or actually dysphoric. There's too much important work to be done. But I do hang around and do a show every week or 2 on Francis's evil power moves because I don't want to get too far removed from it. This pontificate is not going to last forever. It's been a pontificate of those special lobby pervert agendas, and the Lavender Mafia agenda has been, second or third or maybe fourth on the list. And today's show illustrates how and why, when 2025 is the time. But we're not far from the end of this pontificate. I don't know how far. But you're going to learn a lot about Benedict and about Francis, and so will I, when this pontificate comes to its close. And also, since I already spoke of this week's early show on Jesus' slur of King Herod, I'll also speak on this week's middle week show, that episode of Rules for Retrogrades that I did with Dr. Edmund Mazza. That show was on what might be called Benedictplanism until Benedict died. Now just basically Benedict was Pope. I don't know what they call the movement anymore. That's not out of the realm of possibility, which is why I have dialogued with Edmund Mazza the entire time. I would like to have Stephen O'Reilly back on the show to do what he thinks constitutes effective countering of Mazza. I'd love to have them debate each other. But I think that's still relevant. It's too weird. There's strange and there's too strange to accept. And the Francis pontificate is on the borderline between them two. The very strangest pontificate ever, maybe. Or nudge it over a little bit and it becomes too strange to accept and maybe he's not Pope. I don't know. I still tend to think he is Pope and that he's just the worst Pope ever and that he was kind of the formal signal or sign of contradiction, sign that the great apostasy is at least beginning. But other times I'm like, no, this is too a night in which all cows are black, as Hegel's roommate Holderlin once said. A night in which all cows are black, too far gone for it to be the thing that it claims to be. We'll have to wait and see. What do you guys think in the comments? I really am curious. Where are you at? Edmund Mazza reported that like 83% of Taylor Marshall is always doing polls. It's important to him to do lots of polls. He said 83% of his audience thinks, along with the Benedictplanists, that Benedict was Pope until he died about 2 years ago, and now we have a sedevacante. I don't know. It's not impossible. It's not unprecedented in the history of the church. I was a church history teacher for 10 years. And, such a thing as the Avignon papacy and a bunch of anti-popes that arise out of that. The Cadaver Synod still presents us an ambiguity in the history of the church. Is Francis, assuming he's Pope, number 266 or 265? They're not sure still about Formosus. The Annuario has suggested he was and he wasn't Pope at various times, even in the last 100 years. And that's old. So you guys might not understand. I know some of you don't understand, because a lot of people are like, well, Tim, if you're not a Beneplenist, why do you keep having Mazza or Coffin on your show? Well, you can't really have a pro-LMNOPQ Pope, can you? That's not Catholic. I mean, is the Pope Catholic? That used to be a joke. Used to be a paraphrasm, a reductionistic, self-answering question. It's no longer been a joke since Benedict retired. Do popes even retire? What the hell is that? So, is the Pope Catholic? Now has become like an academic question. And it's even become an academic question: is the Pope actually the Pope? Such that I think it's open enough to continue putting at the front of everyone's minds. Hey, I say, and I do this without the polling. I was never a polling guy. I don't poll to see.
I think I ran a poll.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Steph will sometimes do this stuff like while I'm live, but I don't really poll. I come up here, I do shows on sometimes very popular topics, sometimes they're very unpopular topics, and it's like, look, these are the three things that came out this week or that popped into my head this week that I think the most important for a Catholic, or just broadly speaking, a conservative, to be spending a half hour to an hour considering. Sometimes it's really popular. Sometimes it's really not. I don't care. So I don't have much use for polls, but sometimes they're interesting. And the same as a citation I'm making to Edmund Mazza citing to Taylor Marshall's poll, 83% of folks in a technically non-sedevacantist audience, largish audience, larger than this show has, think maybe Francis is an anti-pope. And every time we all get news of something stranger and stranger, it becomes a little less unlikely that we could be in a historical reenactment of the Avignon papacy.
Super chat question, I think from an Orthodox guy, but why do you hold he is Pope when he does not hold the Catholic faith?
Well, because that's a term of art, holding the Catholic faith. And the main thing that happens when folks use terms of art as if they're colloquial terms is imprecision. Imprecision follows when you're like, oh, well, does he hold the faith? Like, hey, you just said he's pro LMNOPQ plus. Yeah, I did, but there's a technical terminus to how liberal, how permissive a pope may be in his personal opinions about such matters, political, cultural, subversive matters. And it's not as clear as the language you use to modify even the question. Well, he's not Catholic, so why do you think he's the Catholic Pope? Well, I mean, technically he's Catholic. He's a Catholic operating within the boundaries of the sacraments. He's a prelate. He was a bishop, then an archbishop. Now he's the Bishop of Rome. Even that's, I grant you, my friend, even that's kind of funny, because Vicar of Christ, Bishop of Rome, Francis and Benedict intentionally muddled together. They intentionally muddled these distinctions and designations. So I grant you that it's not clear, but you're wanting me to say, well, it's clear that he's not Pope. That Mazza and Coffin and Ann Barnhart and others want it to be absolutely crystal clear that he's not Pope, and that's just not the case. Now, it's not crystal clear that he is Pope either, but it's called erring on the side where there's the most evidence. I don't even know if there's a safe side to err on anymore, because the world is so dangerously clownish at this point. But you err on the side of the most evidence. Kind of like splitting aces in blackjack or something. It's just play the numbers and do it with a sense of attunement to changing facts, so you don't have change blindness, and do it with as close to an open mind as you can muster, and then let the facts fall where they may. That's the answer to why we've regarded the Francis pontificate as the 266th. But remember, the church isn't even quite of one mind whether or not Formosa's cadaver synod depoped pope was ever depoped, or whether he was pope. So it's not so clear. Any other questions today? Go sign up for the marriage coaching or the marriage class, or at least buying one of our 3 patriarchy books, Case for Patriarchy, Ask Your Husband, or especially Leave and Cleave, the new one. And remember, there's a 10% sale on timothyjgordon.com, and we are running back the live marriage class starting in January.
And it comes with a free signed book this time. So.
Yeah.
Hey. Hey.
Comes with a free signed book. So we're putting you in a position of being extended an offer you can't refuse. A free signed book. There's no way you're going to say no to that.
Okay, that did it. Signing up now.
I keep pinning to my Twitter thread the special release, the special first look of What a Woman Is. It's a 12-minute sizzle reel, extended first look at our film, which is going to come out in early 2025. We're aiming for Valentine's Day. And guess what? I can't, that sizzle reel won't stay pinned as my pinned tweet. That's odd, isn't it? Everything about this movie has been feeling like it's under some sort of diabolical attack. Look, I'm going to pin it for the 3rd time to my profile. Are you sure you want to pin?
Yeah, I'm not seeing it pinned either.
That's weird. I'm telling you guys, that's weird. I just pinned it for the 3rd time and it won't do it. Our work on patriarchy, if you want to support this channel, do it on locals. We need support, but our work on patriarchy has really put us in the crosshairs. There's an article interview of me by a guy called John McGleon on The Blaze, all about, Tim, you're the godfather of the patriarchy restoration movement, especially online. So that article's coming up soon. That's good because it's a friendly article. He's sympathetic to patriarchy. But I tell you, the last 6 months, it's felt like spiritual combat. So if you want to support us in any ways, prayers, please, and supporting the channel through locals. Because we have really gone through it. 2024 has been a year as we're, as creator and producer of this movie that's going to blow your socks off, or however that goes. And working with Nick, the director of the movie, and working with lots of unexpected new fellow travelers. At times, even Brett Favre. I told you guys, we've worked with Brett Favre some throughout this year. There have been unexpected joys, but there have been unexpected difficulties that have arisen suddenly, and we could really use your prayers. So, God bless you all. Go watch, if you didn't do it on Thanksgiving, the What a Woman Is extended first look premiere. It's on the channel. It's got 10,000 views. I'd really love it if it had 50,000, because the more views, the more it helps people. So if you've watched it once, feel free to go watch it again. Show it to some people. It'll knock their socks off, and it'll maybe start a lively discussion. So go do that. Consider the marriage coaching. God bless you all. Have a happy first full weekend post-Thanksgiving, and happy, as of tomorrow, 2nd week of Advent. Deus Volt.